I'm sorry, my name is Stacey, Low Dog, and I've been living in this community for over 30 years, and we were fighting injustices back in the 90s. We're the ones that were doing the protests against the police department in the city. We're the ones that brought in Russell Means that time. I mean, there's a lot of things that we did back in the late 90s and in early 2000, but it's all similar, and it just seems like nothing changes. I mean, now my oldest son got in the system too, and once he got in there, he was telling me about all the things that actually went on in that jail, which isn't good. You know, a lot of violations of people's rights, and then what really bothered me is when COVID hit, and they were putting people that had COVID in with the natives that didn't have COVID just to get them all sick. And they were complaining about that. They were saying, because my son got it in there too. And so he's like, you can't be putting sick people in here with us. And that's what they were doing. So yeah, he tried to make complaints and nothing happened. So I did look it up, and I was telling him, Department of Justice out of Washington issued a statement that anybody who purposely gets somebody sick with COVID, it was considered like a violation of rights, and that they can be brought up on those charges like attempted murder. So I said, you have to do that, and he did follow up. I kept pushing him, you gotta follow up and charge that jail with that, because you guys all could have died from that. You know, and then he brought up that Packy Black Bear. I don't know if anybody knew him, but he was the first one to get COVID in there. And they were putting him in with all those other ones that got COVID, but he ended up getting killed up here on Mount Rushmore Road, and they didn't do anything really about that or find out, or well, maybe they did. I think that guy was arrested, huh? But yeah, I just wanted to hear what was gonna be said, because I'm telling you, the way it is around here, it just feels like nothing's changed, and it is gonna take a lot of voices, a lot of concerned people to face them. That's the one thing they don't like, I can tell you that. Meeting with the mayors are all the same, chief of police are all the same, they all defend each other. And the way that hierarchy works, the mayor is over the police department. He is their boss. So when you look at it, that's who you complain to. But it always falls on deaf ears too, because he is actually backing them up and sticking up for them. I mean, we went through that with a lot of cases, and then even now, the way you see it with the justice system, that's one of the things we've been saying, is that they get everybody to plea bargain. That's one of their biggest things. Even if you're innocent, they want you to plea bargain so they can hurry up and get you in prison. Yeah. You're like plea bargaining down to a lesser charge, but you're still gonna get prison time over that. You're still guilty of something. Even if you're innocent, that's one of the things we were finding out is, if you don't do this, you're gonna be looking at some serious time. And I told my son, because he was meeting young guys up in jail there, and that's what they were going to, and I said, tell them to stick to their guns and don't give in. They may sit there for a while, but they're gonna get cleared. They gotta fight it right up to the end and stay not guilty. And you know what, there were some of them that sat there for a whole year doing that, but they finally got free. But they had to sit there and go through that. Matter of fact, they came and seen my son when they were getting out after a whole year. They said, we took our stayed to our guns and just said, I didn't do it. I'm innocent. But no, you gotta plead. But they just kept pushing it for a whole year. Kept pushing it until finally they just released him after a whole year. So yeah, there's a lot of injustices, and how I see it too is that it's gonna take a lot of voices, a lot of complaints, probably a lot of document writing, and I really believe that Department of Justice needs to come in here and do a real investigation. But that's gonna take people who are not afraid and who are gonna take that time, knowing it's gonna be, kind of a long-worthy thing, because it's not gonna happen overnight, but they can come with enough statements and with enough people that are gonna withstand it and stick it out to the end, and ask them for a darn investigation over this entire judicial system. That's what I was saying. And the only reason I'm saying that, because I think it was in 2000, maybe 99, I don't know if you guys heard about that Gina Score case over in, she was in Plankington, 14-year-old girl. She was locked up, but they were making them all run, and she was kind of a heavy-set girl. Yeah. And she died of a heart attack because they were making them all get out, do calisthenics, and Her mother was actually from Black Hawk. And how I know that was, she created this group called Parents Who Care Coalition. She brought Department of Justice here. But you know what? Here's the media, here's the city, not wanting people to know they were coming to investigate that judicial system over in Plankington. And why? I happened to go through Rapid City Journal, a little tiny article about this big, about 10th page, saying Department of Justice here, they're up at St. Isaac Jogues, and if you have complaints, go. About this big. They didn't want nobody to know they were here. I saw it at the last minute, 2 hours in the meeting, and I took off up there. Sure enough, there was 2 officials that came from Washington, but because this was a Washichu group, she organized and she raised money to get them here. And they said it took about $50,000 to get them here. Because from what I understand, there's only like 3 or 4 people in that entire Department of Justice. Senior attorney, maybe 3 or 4 workers to cover the whole 50 states. How the heck are you gonna do that? You know, that's what I asked them. How are you gonna do that? I mean, look what goes on here. I said, South Dakota is probably one of the most racist states. I had a long talk with them. I got up and I talked. I was only native there. It's all Washichus that came. But you know what? They got them to investigate Plankington, and they sued them for her. Because you can't force people to get up and exercise, especially when she had medical conditions, but they were forced her. She ended up dying of a heart attack. So it can be done, because I seen them do it up here. So I said, how do we get you guys here? I said, you know, South Dakota, there's a history here of racism because of the land they took from us. That's why it's so racist here, and we really have a hard time. And what they said was, if you do what she does, raise the money, get us here. But you guys have to pay for it, because Department of Justice only allows for, they call it the metropolitan areas, like Los Angeles, Chicago, places like that. That's the only places where they'll fund, because it has to be like millions of people, and those cities hold millions of people. We're considered a rural area, South Dakota. We don't have in South Dakota what's in those cities. So he said, we can't just come if you was to request it. You would have to do what they did, form a group, raise the money, and get us here. Because what it is you have to help pay the salaries to keep us here. Those guys were here for about a month investigating. And they came to Rapid because the mother was from Black Hawk, but they investigated that juvenile justice system. And they found wrongdoing. And that mother got to sue that system. And I can't remember if Plankington shut down or not because of it. It might be, I think, because of that, because that's how they were treating those youth. But I said, I showed papers and documents to them, and they got all excited over it. I said, look at what's happening here in South, this is what's happening in Rapid City. And he goes, you know, if you could get us here, he goes, we would love to investigate this place. We would love to go after these people, because first of all, they're representing us. And he goes, and they're embarrassing us, and they're violating everybody's constitutional rights. So I said, Native people, we're the ethnic group here in this state. They're violating us because we're the largest ethnic group in this state. I said, this is our homeland, our ancestral homeland. That's why they do that. But nobody can go against them. I mean, you can get lawyers, but this is what happens. I know people who sued Pennington County, but guess what? It has to be hush-hush. You can't, they make you sign an agreement. You can't go out and talk about it. You can't go to the media. But they'll settle for $80,000 or $90,000 for a beating that the police gave to someone. I know 2 people that happened to. I said, $80,000, $90,000 is nothing compared to what they did to you. Look what they did to Rodney King, and he got over $3 million through Department of Justice was the one that investigated that one in LA. This is what they told me. So we came in and did that, and so we set the dollar amount, and they said, we're the ones that prosecuted for what they did to Rodney King. Well, we can do that here in South Dakota, but you all need to get together and try to raise the funds and the money to get us here. And we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 months, maybe more, to be here to do a full investigation, going through records, documentations, whatever complaints there are. I said, you know, I can almost imagine how many people will show up for something like that. And it would take a while. So that was something on the back burner, just thinking about, but it's a huge project, huge, you know, to get something like that going. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. I know it can be done because I met the mother through those Parents Who Care Coalition. She formed that out of Black Hawk. But you see how they work, little tiny paragraph in the paper so that people couldn't see it. I was just going through the paper and I just came across it accidentally. And nobody else I called around here didn't even know they were meeting here. Didn't even let anybody know. And that's the city for you. You know, they don't want us to know that they're here investigating them. And there's nothing they can do once they get here, because Department of Justice has nothing to do with this city and the way they run. They want to look for constitutional rights violations. That's what they do. And I sat and they sat with me 2 hours after it was over, and I showed them documentation after documentation. I just grabbed everything I had and took off running up there. I didn't even have time to organize it. But look what happened. Here's a statement with this. And he's like, wow, you know, you're sitting on a gold mine here. We'd love to come and do this, but you guys gotta get together and raise that money. And it's gonna come into quite a bit to get us here. So that's just something to think about. I mean, it's an idea, a project I've been wanting to do, because I know we can come up with all kinds of stuff here. A lot of people's rights are violated in this city. A lot of people, and I know it can be done. And they did it from Black Hawk, you know, so, but that's what I wanted to say. We could talk for hours about all these different things that are going on here. I can tell you story after stories from the 90s and 2000s and right up until now, or people experiencing all this stuff. But too much time. Here we go, but thank you.